Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett. And today our special guest is Dr. Chae Tracy.
Yes, Chae Tracy of Family First Chiropractic and now a stem cell center called Regenerate.
Yes.
So he's been in business here in Dripping since 2004. Great guy. I've known him for a long time. So he's
kind of a staple in Drip. Yep. You see him everywhere.
All over the place.
Every event is out there. There's Dr.
He's
Chae.
almost as visible as we are.
Almost. I'm sure people are sick of seeing us. Too bad we're not going anywhere.
The other day, somebody commented on that picture from that lifestyle magazine we're in.
Oh, yeah.
And they said,
Dripping Springs
look,
City
you're
Lifestyle.
famous. And I said, well, yeah.
Duh.
Like stating the obvious.
I'm carrying around a black Sharpie already.
Oh,
so,
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I have been for years, but now I maybe have a time to use it.
Well, yeah, just you got to talk to the bodyguard first before you can approach us. Yeah, Cedric the bodyguard. Did you see Skull and Cakebones closed down?
I did, but I read that they are closing their Dripping Springs location, but they're gonna have something else in the works.
Apparently, they're doing some kind of cooperative thing with HEB, so they're not going out of business, but they're doing away with the retail locations.
Well, that's interesting. I know parking was always crazy, and they've actually lasted a lot longer than any other business.
They were there like
7
years.
No, I thought
was it that long?
I
Maybe
think it was
longer
7, 8 years.
than that. Yeah.
Okay, Steve. In all honesty, the last 3 years have been a total blur.
Well, that's true.
We don't. It's like a time warp.
Flown by. Yeah. Well, I know my friend Daniel used to go there all the time, so he'll miss it. But apparently, it'll still be available at HEB.
Yeah, gluten-free.
And it was all vegan, which is funny because there's no butter or milk in it.
Sounds delicious.
There's still a pound and a half of sugar in the.
Oh, okay. I guess sugar's vegan.
Yeah, I guess so.
I didn't think about it in that sense.
We have a celebrity here in town that a lot of people don't know about. The Liver King.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? I haven't seen him around. I know that he's here, and I told my boys when I found out that he was living here, I said, hey, do you know who the Liver King is? And they were like, yeah. And I said, you know that he lives here in Dripping? And Tate was like, no, he doesn't. And I said, yes, he does. And he looked up and goes, oh, yeah, he does.
Yeah, he doesn't live here. He owns property here. I think he still lives up by Lake
Houston.
Conroe.
Yeah, Houston.
But for those listeners out there that don't know, he established this whole huge supplement company selling apparently $100 million a year worth of supplements.
Yeah.
And his whole shtick, which has turned out to be a shtick, is this ancestral lifestyle.
Yeah, where he grabs raw animal organs and he eats them.
Raw liver and raw testicles.
Yeah, he just
quite often.
And his voice is
a Mongolian yak. And where do you think we're going to start? Of course, the liver first.
Yeah, so he just I talk like this.
He actually doesn't seem like a very smart guy, but man, he sure swindled a ton of people.
Well, he has a wife, I think is from Sweden, and then 2 boys, right? And so I think...
And he does the same thing with the boys. He's got them eating raw liver every day, and they look like little wild animals, like they grew up around wolves or something.
But the whole thing, his whole stick, right, was that I eat animal organs, therefore I look like this. And he's like
he's jacked.
Hulk Hogan type.
He's jacked, yes. So in the last couple of weeks, though, it's come out that, because he has claimed since day one that this is all natural and no steroids.
Did he actually say that?
He says it all the time. I saw him on lots and lots of podcasts saying, I don't take anything. I just live this ancestral lifestyle. I guess there's 9 tenets of this ancestral lifestyle.
Yeah.
Sleep, eat better, move, shield, meaning prevent your body from being exposed to toxins. Connect with the earth. So he's a lot of times walking around barefoot. And, cold, which is like the cold baths. Sun, getting out in the sun because he looks like he's going to have skin cancer. Fight and bond.
Oh, so I've got sleep, fight, and
bond.
I got 3 of the 9.
Well, then you
get
good. Cold and sun in your sun.
Cold and sun. Yeah.
Anyway, so he has claimed since day one that he was not doing steroids, PEDs they call them, performance enhancing drugs.
So, but he was found out.
There was some emails that came out from him to some clinician somewhere talking about the whole regimen of steroids that he takes, which apparently he was taking $16,000 a month worth of steroids.
And I read this letter because I also follow this guy called the Lion Diet, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And he's the one that released this letter. And he was talking about that maybe some personal trainer or something, he ticked somebody off. And so they released it. But I think the biggest thing is just being truthful.
Well, yeah. Right? I mean, if he'd have been jacked like that selling the supplements, probably most of these kids, and almost all of them are boys, wouldn't have paid any attention because they would have been like, well, because the whole shtick, the whole thing was, you can look like you're jacked up on steroids, but all you have to do is take my supplements and eat raw liver. So he's really swindled a lot of people, but the guy's selling $100 million a year worth of supplements.
$100,000 a year?
$100 million a year.
I was going to say.
What did I say? $100 million a year worth of supplements is what he's selling.
Wow.
The guy, I've seen videos of him on Instagram. He has a private jet. He has a Sherman tank. He has a monster truck. He's got multiple helicopters. This guy is so rich.
So there was actually, this was maybe a month or so ago, there was a video that he posted. Now, I only followed him because he was so cringy, but
It's so true.
And because he was here in Dripping, or, his company was going to be here in Dripping. And he was in Vegas partying it up at one of the, if you've ever been to Vegas and, the pools are the place to be, the party pools. And he was over there talking. He had his, what is that hat? What are they, with like the animal?
Oh, like a Viking hat.
A Viking hat, yeah. And he's standing there and he's at the pool and he's talking like this. And all these people are behind him, totally ignoring him. And I mainly followed him to read the comments about how, like,
it was like watching a Saturday Night Live skit.
It was very much skitty. But, it made me think about, I've heard some rumblings about this 2012, whether or not it's like, I'm going to butcher this law, but there was a law called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Law. And it's basically, just to put it in very simple terms, they legalized propaganda in the United States that you can, So, with everything that's been found out now about the underdealings at Twitter, the conversations that Fauci has had with Zuckerberg. I mean, just all of the things that are kind of look here but not here kind of thing.
Stuff you'd see going on in a banana republic.
Exactly right. This is disgusting that somebody is blatantly lying and taking money from people
from
based
a lot
on
of
lies.
Mostly young men who were susceptible to that.
Well, that whole generation, is. So.
I mean, he's basically the modern day version of the guy traveling around in the wagon with the cure-all, little lotion in the back.
Snake oil.
Yeah, snake oil salesman.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a lot. You've got to be very careful if you're what you're promoting, and you've got to be very careful about not only what you're promoting, but who you're paying attention to and what they are promoting.
People need to be skeptical.
Yes.
So when somebody comes out and makes some extraordinary claim, you have to be skeptical until you can prove it.
Exactly right. I'm just skeptical in general. I think.
Well, and we all should be. But anyway, so that's not necessarily a claim to fame for Dripping Springs, but apparently his real name's Brian Johnson.
Johnson. Well, I haven't seen him at the grocery store.
Well, I have not either. And did you see his apology? It was lame.
It was lame.
He's talking about, it cracked me up when he said it. He said that his deception came about because of his low self-esteem.
Oh.
That guy has...
Bless your heart. Go to the crying corner.
He has no self-esteem issues
Go
whatsoever.
to the crying corner.
Yeah.
So, Steve, this could be... And have you ever heard of the term hard candy Christmas?
Isn't that a Dolly Parton song?
Yes, it is a Dolly Parton song. Look at you. Well, the phrase hard candy Christmas refers to a time when families who did not have much money and they could only afford to give hard candy or penny candy, which was like bulk candy, to their children at Christmas. And so I thought my WTF, my weird true fact, this time
WTF.
My WTF was going to be, I kind of spend in the hard candy Christmas, but we all know who Dolly Parton is and what she's known for, correct?
Are we thinking the same thing?
Her voice, obviously, Steve. God, what are you thinking? Jeez, she's also the undisputed queen of country music.
So there's a nuclear power plant in Southern California. What's it called? I think it's a San Clemente power plant, and it's these two huge domes, and they have like a little tower on the top of each dome, and we used to call that the Dolly Parton Memorial.
Why would you do that? Because of her voice?
Because of her voice.
Her voice. Well, did you know that she also gives free books, like millions and millions of books away to children all the time? And she's won many, many awards, not only for her acting, but her music. She donated also $1 million to COVID research. She has Dolly World. Dolly has kind of become just a national treasure, especially of the late. I have a shirt that has Dolly Parton on it. It says, "I beg your," and then it has Dolly on it. I beg your pardon. Get it? But my WTF moment, which I thought was very interesting, is if you pay attention to Dolly Parton, she always wears, did I say Parton? She always wears gloves or long sleeves. And
really?
Yeah. Always. And the reason why is you would never guess. Well, one of the reasons why you'd never guess.
I don't even have a guess.
She has tattoos.
No way.
Yeah. She has tattoos. Now, okay, so it's a twofold. So she wears fingerless gloves on her hands sometimes because she's had a lot of hand surgeries, and she said she keloids, which is like where they bubble up, and so they're purple or red. So she's self-conscious about that. But if she wears something that's short sleeve or that's kind of clear, she'll wear flesh-colored gloves, and she'll have fingernails glued on the tips of them.
Of the gloves.
Yeah.
In that movie she was in 9 to 5, I don't think she was wearing gloves.
Well, and so... Steve, how long ago was 9 to 5? It was like 50 years ago.
I guess it was. Now that you mention it, it's probably like the early 90s.
She said that, being Dolly Parton, just adore her. She said she doesn't want to make a big, bold statement. And a lot of her tattoos are like flower tattoos, ribbons, bows, beehives, butterflies. Most recently, she released a picture of herself, and she has... it's like pink and purple flowers right below her cleavage. And so you could kind of see, could kind of see, I'll show you a picture later. You could kind of see that. But, like I said about the hand surgery and everything. But, Dolly Parton is such an amazing person. I saw her in concert one time at Riverbend Church, believe it or not, here in Austin.
She seems like one of those celebrities who is a truly nice person.
She's
down
just
in her
genuine.
Soul, in her heart.
She's funny as heck, too. Yeah. She said one of her quotes is, "It cost a lot of money to look this cheap."
Yeah.
But one of my favorite Dolly Parton quotes is, "I always just thought if you see somebody without a smile, give them yours."
Oh.
So that, it's not as, my WTF moment is just.
She comes across as one of those people that's made it, that doesn't take it for granted.
No, I would.
She doesn't. Life can be weird this way. You can have somebody that's super talented and they don't ever make it. And there are some people that are reasonably talented and they make it. And it's like, a lot of it's luck. Yeah. Luck and timing. But she lucked out and she got to be one of the best of the best.
Yeah, and she's a very hard worker. She's very open about the wigs that she wears. Oh, this was another thing I found out about her, is that a lot of times when you see her hair, it's very high.
Yeah.
And she said because the clothes that she wears are very tight and form-fitting, that there's nowhere for the microphone pack. So her wigs have a pocket just for the microphone pack. Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
I would love to see her just like stripped down, not stripped down. You know what I mean? Stop, Steve Mallett.
It's a lot of guys in our audience going, yeah, I'd like to see her stripped down too, Michelle.
Just the natural, Dolly. Yeah. No. Okay, I'm on that note. My WTF moment is done. Go ahead, Steve. You have the floor.
Speaking of famous people, do you know Lamar? Lamar Road in Austin.
Oh, Lamar.
Yeah,
yes. I thought you were talking about Lamar Odom, and I was like, do you know who Lamar Odom is?
Do you know who that's named after?
It's like it was the governor or president, or I don't know.
He was the VP of the Republic of Texas. Yeah, Mirabeau B. Lamar.
Mirabeau B. Lamar?
Mirabeau. Try and say that 3 times.
Mirabeau B. Lamar.
Mirabeau B. Lamar came to Texas in 1835 as a newspaper man to write the history of the Republic of Texas. And joined the Texican Army as a private.
The Texican?
Texican.
Ooh, I like the Texican.
Yeah.
That's a good Mexican food place.
The Texian?
The Texican.
I don't think it's Texican. I think it's Texian.
Where?
The army.
Oh, okay.
The Texian army.
Oh, you said Texican.
I think
first.
it was Texian up until the state became Texas.
I don't like it. I'm going to call it Texican.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, so he joined the army as a private, but became a colonel when he distinguished himself in the Battle of San Jacinto. And then he ran as the vice president for the Republic of Texas with Sam Houston as president. And they won. So he was the VP of the Republic of Texas. And he was the one that chose Austin as the capital of Texas. Oh. And he discovered this area. He was on a buffalo hunt. And right down, sort of almost in where downtown Austin is right now. And he decided that's where they should have the capital of Texas.
That's interesting.
But
and so they named a street after him.
They did. They named a street. He was actually way back considered they were going to use his name for the name of Town Lake. But by then, the public sentiment had turned against him. I guess he had gotten in office and come up with some policies that were not very popular.
Something about annexation too, right? Or did you read something about that?
I didn't. The article
Which I'm for. If we want to.
Yeah. But so when it came, they had an election or a vote to call it either Lamar Lake or Town Lake, and Town Lake won. So that was where the name Town Lake originally came
Why didn't they
from.
just call it Lake?
Yeah.
And now it's called
Town Lake, Michelle.
I know. It is called Town Lake, not Lady Bird Lake.
The only people that ever call it Lady Bird Lake are the people that moved here in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
let's get Chae in here. Maybe we'll name it Chae Lake.
Chae Lake. Yeah. Well, sit tight, everybody. We'll be right back with Chae Tracy.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Chae Tracy. Or I actually said we're going to name Town Lake after you. It's going to be Chae Lake.
Chae Lake.
Chae Lake. I like it.
Chae Lake.
Chillaxing on the Chae Lake.
Oh, that's a first. I like that.
Welcome to the show, Chae.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How'd you end up in Dripping Springs?
Funny you should ask, Steve. I was thinking of this earlier, actually, at Chamber. 19 years ago.
19.
A youngster from Oklahoma and a gal from West Texas graduated from chiropractic school in Dallas. Of course, I wanted to go back to Oklahoma, and she wanted to go to West Texas, and we couldn't agree either way. So she had an aunt and uncle in Austin.
Okay.
And we spent a lot of time down here, so we thought maybe Austin is a good compromise. So she did a post-septorship. I did a post-septorship in Austin, and we quickly realized we did not want to be in Austin, but rather a suburb.
Yeah.
So there was Bastrop, there was Dripping, there was Wimberley, there was Marble Falls, and everything just came together in Dripping.
Even 19 years ago, you decided you didn't want to be in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
You were the first chiropractic place out here, weren't you?
So that goes way back. Dr. Sykes was here.
Okay, that's right.
And then actually a mentor of mine, Dr. C.J. Mertz, ran a coaching company that I was a part of out of Dripping Springs. And Dr. J. Morgan lived out here but didn't practice out here. So maybe not the first, but one of the first.
Well, you were the first one that did it big, I'd say.
I want to know, you said you came from Oklahoma, and you mentioned in your bio that you grew up with Blake Shelton.
I did.
And
Oh, you got right to that.
I did. I've met Blake on several occasions, and I want to know how that was like. Is he a big jokester in person?
He is. I tell people that is not scripted on The Voice. That's him. That's who he is. I mean, he was the guy in the hallway while we were in class, hitting his throat call, making turkey noises.
No way.
And, we had a thing of everybody had trucks. And, of course, we had firearms in the trucks because most of the time we would hunt or fish before school. So there was a game of who could hide a carcass in a vehicle the longest before the smell was like, what is in here? So, yeah, and it goes back even farther. My father and his mother dated for some time, and my wife is convinced that there's some relationship there, and my dad will not confirm nor deny. So,
like continued relationship?
Well, she thinks that I have similar features.
I do too.
Of Blake. She's like, "Are you sure that the two of y'all?" And my dad's like, "I won't confirm or deny."
Next time you see him, just pluck the hair, just a little plucking.
Yeah, a little DNA test.
So, are you still in contact with him?
No, he went from cell phone to another cell phone
to his assistant's cell phone
yes, last time we connected was in Vegas at a show, and literally his entourage is in front of him and his hands are up and he's like, this is it.
Did he see you, but you guys couldn't connect?
Yeah, and we eventually met up, but it's just layers
it's a machine now. It's a full machine. He's not even Blake Shelton anymore. He's Blake Shelton the machine.
I don't know. Yeah, it's funny people aspire to that lifestyle and then they get there. It doesn't seem all that great to me on some. I guess the money's great, but
no, and I'll see him when we're back home. He has a place in Fittstown, which I was just up there fishing, and we'll see him around the holidays and what have you, and people will see him around town, and I think they appreciate being left alone, and not just bombarded with pictures and autographs, and so just really letting them be them. Played football with Jeremy Shockey as well. And
really?
He's the same. We'll be in the bar and he buys everybody, a round of drinks, just real genuine. But again, they kind of get tired of pictures. And
they don't want anybody.
They just want to hang out.
Me too. I get so tired of paparazzi.
Yeah, she complains about that all the time, Chae.
It's awful. Yeah. I was just talking about earlier how I carry around a black Sharpie now because we were in the local magazine. So it's just really hard being me.
Just got to sign.
She uses my back to sign everything because that's all I'm good
for. Around, Steve.
Yeah, I know my place in life, Chae.
Hold my purse.
Yeah. Hey, and your mom had a balloon and gift shops, and you wrote in your bio that you did some bikini deliveries.
Were you in a bikini?
Yes.
Wait, get out of here.
Oh yeah. So mom had a gourmet candy and gift shop. So part of her business was deliveries for birthdays, anniversaries, what have you. So of course I wasn't the main muscle model, maybe the liver king. Probably. There were some college guys that were the main bikini deliveries. Mine was more pranks as a kid.
Okay, so set this scene up for me. Set it up.
Bachelorette party.
Okay, so or just in general,
just in general, bikini delivery.
If business gets really slow, you let me know because Steve's birthday is coming up, and I would like to have
a little bikini delivery.
Oh my gosh,
Dr. Tracy.
I'm going to be sick again that day. I'm not coming in.
That sounds like a great idea. I don't know why.
Not even.
Are there pictures of this endeavor?
I'm sure there's pictures somewhere. You can't get away from pictures these days.
We'll blackmail you too. So what gets you interested in chiropractic?
Early on, I knew I enjoyed working and interacting with people. I just didn't know in what capacity to serve. I was intrigued with numbers and financials and investing, and at an early age, I had mutual funds and stocks. And
how early is early?
Early teens.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So I eventually cashed all of that out and paid cash for my wife's wedding ring.
Wow.
But yeah, I remember at that time the advisor saying you're the youngest client I've ever had. So It just intrigued me. It fascinated me. The other area that intrigued me was the human eye. So I was very fascinated with the human eye, and I ended up going down that road. So worked for an optometrist for years, got to do anything and everything besides write the prescription in optometry. And small town Oklahoma boy, I wanted to go to Tahlequah, northeastern Oklahoma, to optometry school. I did not get accepted first round to that school, but I did get accepted to optometry school in Chicago. literally first time I'd been out of the state, show up at the school. There's about an 8-foot wrought iron fence with daggers at the top of it around the school. And that was really my first humbling of, Toto, you're not in.
That sounds like Hogwarts.
No kidding, yeah.
You're at Hogwarts High School.
Yeah.
So quickly I decided Chicago was not for me. So I took a job in Dallas working for an ophthalmologist. Dr. Booth at that time was the foremost expert on LASIK surgery. So, young kid living in Dallas, great job. We had tickets to anything and everything you could imagine because all the athletes came in for Dr. Booth to work on them. So it was a fun time in my life. I got to be Dr. Booth's right-hand man. Most people did not care for him because he had the personality of this wall. But they would say, you know what? I don't come to him to have a conversation.
Yeah, I was
come to
say,
him because he's the best at
you
what
want
he
the
does.
best of the best. You don't care how they treat you, what their bedside manner is, as long as they know how to treat you.
Well, now you live in Dripping, or not? Where you practice in Dripping, and so people let you cut the line at Torchy's. You know, that's your. You don't get the Dallas Cowboys, but you.
It was interesting as his right hand man. I got to get more involved with the surgery side, and that spread into different procedures that we got to do. And I can remember two in particular. One, so if you've ever seen on people's eyes when they start to get like a little growth that starts coming over, it's called a pterygium. Mm-hmm. So we did a pterygium removal, and a pterygium removal is extremely bloody. And I realized at that point I'm not a fan of blood. I do not want to do blood. The other procedure we did was an interocular block, and I remember this gentleman. He was, probably upper 70s, early 80s, and he's literally strapped down to the table, and Dr. Booth has this massive needle in his hand, and the guy looks over at me and says, "What's in that syringe?" And Dr. Booth, who again has the humor of this wall, looks at me and smiles and says, "Jack Daniels," and starts laughing. And this guy is just terrified.
Oh, no kidding.
And
Jeez.
I'm like, okay, needles and blood.
And eyeballs.
Eyeballs, yeah. I don't know. So
Did you get nauseous when you saw that much blood? Is that what it was?
Not nauseous, just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Just didn't. Some people love blood and being around blood. And I get
that's a weird thing.
Blood.
Yeah.
I'll do IVs and vitamin shots. And in fact, in chiropractic school, we had to do, I think, 9 or 10 blood draws. So I could get through it. It didn't bother me to that extent, but I just realized this isn't something I want to see all of the time. Huh. So the big turning point for me was Dr. Booth was very high volume at LASIK procedures. And it dawned on me one day, there's this box outside of the surgical suite, and people take their glasses off and throw them in the box. So one day I thought, man, this is probably not going to be a good market to go into if everybody's getting rid of their glasses. And I'm going into optometry. Uh-huh. So we had a couple optometrists that work for us, and they just said, "Hey, look, here's the future. You're working for this." Can I cuss on the podcast?
You can if you want.
This a-hole surgeon. And no one's doing glasses and contacts. So I thought, well, maybe let's rethink this. So I had a friend in chiropractic school in Dallas at the time, and the dude was just jazzed up all the time, excited about it, and just telling me about it. And all I knew was being an athlete growing up, when something was hurt or injured, I'd go in and see the chiropractor, and that's what I thought chiropractic was. So he exposed me to really what chiropractic was and encouraged me to come to the campus and take a tour, and met the staff and just got to get a feeling and a sense of what they were doing. And honestly, it felt like family. I felt like, man, I think this is where I need to be. So I looked up and said, "God, is this where you want me?" And applied, got a scholarship, and the rest is history.
Wow.
What do you think the biggest misconception about what you do is? Or you're probably a party treat, right? Like, ooh, Chae, palm my back. Because I'm going to get you to palm my back when we walk on my back.
It's nonstop, especially Thanksgiving. We had a makeshift table. And
can I be invited
just lining up, Let me get adjusted.
That's
fun.
better than being a dermatologist and having people going, "Hey, Chae, what's this thing here on my shoulder?
Will you pop this thing?"
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So what do you think people don't understand about what you do that you want them to understand about what you do?
Chiropractic is very, very, very misunderstood. I mean, people think that it's neck pain, back pain, and it's so much more than that. So I think it's really too simple for most folks to understand. So when you look at the big picture, your brain, your spinal cord, your central nervous system controls everything that your body does. So just did a little blog on this. So we evolved from mom's cell, dad's cell into 75 trillion cells. Mm-hmm. So you look at how do those cells know what to do? How does your body know what to do? So a great analogy is, we're sitting here drinking water. You're talking about pickles and food. So if we eat a pickle, how does our body know how to digest and process the nutrients from that pickle and get rid of the waste without you thinking about it? All you're thinking is, I want a pickle. Man, this pickle tastes good. Mm-hmm. So the bigger picture is what we call innate intelligence. It's the body's ability to heal and function on its own. So by allowing the brain and the spinal cord to communicate and effectively to work, your body is self-healing. It is self-regulating. It's a matter of why is it not when we start to have problems? So that's really what people need to know. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is by design. And I've had this discussion with medical doctors and medical doctors on the medical board, and it comes down to we're competition. Because ultimately we believe the power that made the body heals the body, and that there is.
Hang on, by design, you mean God designed this?
No, by design being suppressed as to what we do.
Being the black sheep of
the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, okay, I follow you. Go ahead, Chae.
So early on, actually in the 80s, chiropractic was almost single-handedly eliminated by the American Medical Association. And some jurors came forth to say that they were attempted to be bought so our message would not be heard.
Oh, interesting.
So not that long ago, chiropractic could have been ended by a decision in the courts. So, there's so many things going on in our world today, especially medicine. You've got to look back. I often reference the Bible with folks and say, what people, have you read the Bible? Did you hear of people going to Walgreens and picking up a prescription? Yeah. Or did they go down to CVS? Or did you hear about cancer? Did you hear about heart disease? How old were people? They were well into their hundreds. What'd they do differently? So you have to look at what do we do differently, and much of that is lifestyle, how and when. So if you go back to the early days of medicine, there was a family that you may remember named the Rockefellers. Mm-hmm. Well, the Rockefellers were the first in the pharmaceutical industry. Guess what schools needed money? Medical schools.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Rockefeller, being the businessman he was, said, I'll fund the school. You promote my pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. And much has not changed to this day.
Oh, it's gotten a lot worse. It's, I was just reading something the other day, 75% of the commercials on TV now are pharmaceutical ads. 3 out of 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in the side effects, the explosive diarrhea, the foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, the guy that talks real fast at the end of the ad.
Yeah.
May grow a third eyeball, but this
it's true, though. You go to the doctor now, they don't try and figure out what's wrong with you and fix that. They offer up basically a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Like, well, this will mask the symptoms, or this will relieve
I was just listening to a podcast actually today. They were talking about the science of headaches, and most of the business today about the headache industry is, the ibuprofens, the Tylenols, those kind of thing. And so what they're dealing with is not necessarily the headache. They're dealing with the after effects of these NSAIDs and what they're doing to their stomach linings and their livers and, whatever else. And it's like, okay, let's try to get to the root cause of the headaches is the stress and the body positions and so on and so forth. And I as a lifelong migraine sufferer, that's 100% true. Even my neurologist, there was a moment where she was just popping pills to me here. And I was like, no, I want to figure out what's going on. Yeah. Why are these migraines being caused?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think your headaches are a result of your body not having enough Tylenol in it?
So all I want you to do is just turn your head a little bit and look right in front of you. And no, I'm just kidding. That's Steve Mallett. No.
Yeah, I'm her headache. So, Chae, are you saying then that some of the things that are treated with pharmaceuticals now can be fixed with chiropractic care?
100%.
Can you give us some examples of that?
So ultimately, we were given the strongest pharmacy known to man on day one. So in my opinion, my philosophy is, why is it not working? So it's not that you're deficient in medication. It's that your body is not functioning properly. So you're talking about the cause. That's what we want to find. We want to find the cause, not just simply cover up the symptoms, right? People understand analogies. They understand if the check engine light comes on in the car, you don't put a piece of tape over the check engine light, because what's going to happen?
Why don't you? That sounds
Car's
like
going to blow
great
up.
idea.
Yeah, car's going to blow up.
Great
Now
idea.
you get a new engine, right? So it makes sense to me that if there's a problem, let's figure out why there's a problem. Let's look at the big picture.
And when you talk about problems, it could be genetic, congenital, environmental, just there's a whole host of issues that kind of led you to this issue, whatever it is. And so you're not pigeonholing everybody into, like, if they, like, for instance, my migraines, it's like your migraines are because of the way you're sitting at your desk or who you work with or your stresses. I mean, there could be other underlying things that necessarily, in my opinion, I think that chiropractic care couldn't help. Because, like, mine are vasospasms, mine are other things that are going on congenitally that I have that goes on in my head. But,
So I'll argue that with you.
Okay.
We do a very specific technique in our office called orthospinology or grostic. So we take very specific x-rays of the top bone in your spine, your atlas. I think there's 4 of us now in Central Texas that do this specific technique. That bone sits on your brainstem. That bone also regulates the amount of blood flow into your brain. So if that bone is what we call subluxated, so if it's out of position, thus not allowing the blood to flow properly or the nerves to communicate properly, you're going to have problems.
Well, I've had neck fusion, and I've had, have you ever heard of Eagles syndrome? That's what I've already had that surgery too. So yeah, it's like I'm compounded.
Chae, she's a mess. We
I'm
could do a whole
medical
podcast
wonder.
on her.
Yeah, I'm a medical wonder. For sure.
So what if she came into your office for treatment for her headaches, knowing her background, the surgeries that she's had, and the what do you call them, where they
styloidectomy?
Yeah,
That's
but
what
the
I
other
had.
thing where they bind them together. It's
the
called
fusion.
Fusion.
The fusion.
Yeah. What kind of care would you take with her?
So we do things a little bit differently in our office. Before we accept a patient into our practice, we do a very thorough exam, and digital x-rays are part of that process. So first, I want to see what's been done to you and how is your body working and why is your body not working, and can we help you, right? With a fusion, obviously nothing you can do, but what we do know is that you'll start to fuse above and below that fusion because your body does not know why it's not moving. It just knows it's not moving. So the irony there is, when we go down the degenerative process, the body starts to fuse as a way of protection, and then we turn to the surgeons to do essentially the same thing the body was doing on its own. So innately, your body is incredibly intelligent. It's just unfortunate that most people don't listen to it.
Oh, yeah, I think we see that all the time.
I don't listen in general.
Well, but the other thing is people want the quick fix.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's kind of, I guess, the path that we're getting to. It's like, it's the mechanics of fixing your body is not just a snap. It's not through one visit, and it's not necessarily even one type of treatment, right? You're going to kind of explore every type of treatment. And now your practice, it's definitely a family affair. You have your wife with you, your sister's there with you, and you've started a whole new avenue with the stem cell. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me.
So the goal that Manya and I had, Manya being my wife, she's a chiropractor as well. We met the second day of chiropractic school, and people say, well, why the second day? And I say, because I'm not a formalities guy. I'm not a rule guy. So I missed the first day.
Don't show up the first day.
I don't want to go through all that. So our vision was always to create a wellness center. So to give people an option, if they don't want to take drugs or have procedures done, then here's a more natural alternative. So naturally, going down the chiropractic route, we added massage therapy, we added rehab, we added spinal decompression and ultrasound as things started to evolve. bringing in other practitioners, nutrition and DNA-based weight loss and coaching and acupuncture and regenerative medicine was always a thought. We knew it existed, but we did not know that we would be able to do some of those things in the United States. Of course, that's true. You mentioned pharmaceutical commercials. So Monty and I got to backpack across Europe for a couple months after school. I just knew once the grind starts, you're not going to be able to take off for 2 months. So it was, hey, let's pack our backpacks and let's take off. And, one of the things that I observed throughout our travels in the different countries was we didn't see the pharmaceutical ads. We didn't see the inserts in the magazines. So started to look at, well, why do they do things differently? And why do they take longer lunches and siestas? And why do they walk everywhere? And, well, let's look at the overall picture of health. And when you look at healthcare in general, which that's another topic, I don't believe we have healthcare. We have sick care.
That's true.
So why do we have arguably the most financial research, science, resources in general in our country, but every single year we are at the bottom of the list when it comes to overall health?
Because it's a business. Everything about healthcare now is a business. I am hearing what he's saying, that he's a proponent of nap rooms.
Well, heard that. Yeah, well, here I'm going to challenge you, Chae, because I agree with everything you just said, 100%. But you own, as near as I can tell, 3 or 4 businesses, and you sit on the chamber board. You're sort of the antithesis of the taking siestas and going for the walks. And so is this a cultural thing in the United States that we need to think about changing?
That's good, yeah.
Where, because I see that in my life too. It's like we're just grinding, hustle. Yeah. It's not good for our health.
No.
I don't know if that's what life was supposed to be about. Well, how do we fix that?
So it's funny you mentioned that, and you mentioned nap rooms. So when we go back to some of the early practices of chiropractic, there were actually resting rooms. So what would happen would be after the adjustment, you would go to a resting room and you would rest. So that has obviously evolved to no one has time to now rest, right? So we could go on.
We do have time. We're choosing not to have time.
Choosing not to. And I'm gonna pick on Steve for a second. When we had to reschedule the podcast, oftentimes when I'm under the weather, it's because my body is now forcing me to rest. Because otherwise I'm
He's
burnt.
the worst.
I don't do that very well, Chae.
At it. He is so bad.
I suck at that.
He is so bad.
And I'm horrible as well.
Yeah.
But your body will make you.
Oh, I know. I was sending Michelle fever texts. Like I'd ask her, "Hey, did you reschedule with Chae?" And then she'd tell me, and then like an hour later, did you get Chae rescheduled?
I actually told Chae last night, I said, we're on for today if he doesn't kill over in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, Steve.
But rest it's very underrated in this country. People don't, and sleep, just sleep in general. Not enough people get enough sleep. And I think that's, we talk about burning the candle at both ends kind of thing. That was when I was younger. It's like getting more than 6 hours sleep. I felt like I was a slacker.
Right.
Now I'll try and get 8 hours every night, but rest is very important. But I do think as a country, we tend to really be chasing things all the time and never being in a place of contentment. Always having to see the next big thing.
But I think that for me personally, like when I had my surgery and I'm not very good. Okay, I had surgery on a Monday, I got out on a Tuesday, and I made you come pick me up on a Friday. Yeah. So I wasn't a good rester either. But if I am stagnant and I am bored out of my gourd, I find enjoyment and fulfillment from my work and doing this, and it makes me happy.
Once you've had some rest and time to
yes, and I like projects,
bit.
but I do my middle son right now, he's taking the MCAT, and this is he's preparing for the MCAT in March, and he's a rescue swimmer also. Well, this is a big disagreement with the family right now because he's not coming home he didn't come over for Thanksgiving, he didn't come over for Christmas, he's not coming over for his brother's birthday. And normally we're a very close family. We see him and He's like, I need to get to the finish line. It is most important that I get here. And we're like, babe, you've got to just take a little bit of time to rest.
But when you're young, you have to get those things done while you're young and have the energy to do it.
I know. He was getting mad at me yesterday because he's like, I know.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that, and much was the same in chiropractic schools. 3 or 4 tests a day. And, we're cramming all night and staying up late, and Manu was one that really changed my way of thinking. And it's like, we're done. It's 9, 10 o'clock. We're done. If you don't know it by now, you're not. Yeah, well,
that's true.
And I immediately saw a shift in my grades. I thought, wow, this is
negatively or positively?
Positively.
Really?
Yeah.
I think he's so in his head right now. And that's kind of what he did when he went through rescue swimming school, was that he has to kind of shut himself off, and he has a goal. He's going to get to that goal no matter what that goal is. But, his wife and his mom and his brother and sister and dad, we're all just like, hey, we love you over here, here.
I want to go back to the stem cell thing, Chae. So you started this stem cell center now called Regenerate.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that therapy. Where'd the idea come from, and how's it actually work?
So we now refer to them as regenerative cellular therapies.
Okay.
So we knew we had a short window on what we could do, what we could say, and how we could utilize those cells. And the short story there is they work so well that there's folks that don't want them to be as prolific as they were. So you're seeing a lot of use. Insurance, for example, doesn't cover regenerative cellular therapies. So these things work so well that people say, we don't want you using them. So people go outside of the country.
Why do you them? Yeah, I was going to
say, how many types of how many types of stem cell use are there? And does the FDA, do insurance companies not pay for any type of stem cell?
So most of the use in the United States is more for burns and burn victims. Of course, it's like any pharmaceutical. There's a lot of off-label use as well. So, people go outside of the country. I mean, Germany has been on the forefront of regenerative cellular therapies for a long time. And of course, now you can go to Mexico and Panama, and most of these places are set up so that we can get there easily and utilize those services. It's not
So you're not doing it here?
We are.
Okay.
We are.
So
insurance doesn't pay for it.
Yeah, it doesn't cover.
No.
Well, what kind of injuries or conditions can it treat?
So joint injuries, degeneration is a big one.
Arthritis.
Yeah. So all the stem cells, we're born. That's how we evolve. We talked about cells earlier, is from stem cells. It's just a matter of, as you get older, you have less You have less stem cells. So it's just putting something back in the body that the body does not have as much of.
Are you putting your own stem cells back into your own body, or are these stem cells donated stem cells? I don't even know. Where do you go to the stem cell store?
So it's very regulated. There's tissue banks that are highly regulated. So these cells are from mothers who have been tested and consented, and these are live births, healthy children. These are not aborted fetuses. So immediately that's what people want to think about, and that's where they want to go. You're using aborted fetuses. No, absolutely
So
not.
it's umbilical cord.
Correct. So amniotic fluid, umbilical cord. So you've been through the process. That's considered medical waste. So all they're doing is extracting those cells to utilize those cells.
Would someone like me, would I have to give consent to donate that, or?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So you consent, there's testing, and now it's very popular for people to store and bank their own cells.
That was just starting to become, that was just on the cusp when we had our kids. They were just talking about that, banking it. And I was like, why would you do that? There wasn't not enough known about doing that. And I don't know. I think I would probably make that decision today to do that if I was a mother today.
The option.
Yeah.
How do the stem cells actually heal, though, Chae? What goes on in the human body that allows them to make that change?
So the body's self-healing, self-regulating. The stem cells have what's called cytokines. The cytokines find the area of inflammation. So if it's in the joint, they're going to go immediately to the area that's most inflamed, and they know that's where we need to regenerate, replicate, and start the healing process.
Is that where you're injecting into, like, let's say it's a knee. So are you injecting into that particular site? So, if you're not injecting it in the arm and on the way it goes to the elbow, or will it
No, so you want
to
target the area if it's joint based, and that's a discussion that happens quite frequently. Is people think, well, I've got a shoulder, I've got a knee, I've got an ankle, I've got my back. Why don't we just do an IV and let them go throughout the body?
Yeah.
In a sense, yes. For autoimmune neurological conditions, that makes sense for them to dictate where they're going to go and what they're going to focus on. But if it's a joint, you want to go right into that joint.
Mm-hmm. And you can get it sort of like 1 cc, 2 cc, 3 cc. And so the more you get, obviously the more expensive it is, but the more you get, the higher chance of healing.
Not necessarily. It's more the size of the joint. And the size of the person.
So like a hip joint would probably be 3 cc's. Right. Maybe finger joint would be 1.
Exactly.
Okay.
And how many treatments does someone normally need?
So it's meant to be a long-term procedure. I'll use Steve as an example. I love using runners as an example, and with knees, right? It's like, well, if we inject your knees are going to feel great. But if you keep running, guess what you're going to do? You're going to break that joint down again. So if you're a runner and you decide to hit the pool instead, then you're going to preserve the integrity of that joint for a much longer period.
Interesting.
I don't care. I'm going to keep running anyway.
and that's with most, right? With most athletes, then they just know, like, hey, this is my lifestyle. This is what I'm going to do. So I know.
Yeah, I'll do it as long as I can.
What is the success rate?
Ooh, that was what I was going to ask.
Oh, I beat you.
Yeah, you did.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Beep.
Yep.
I don't know that I have a number, 90%, 100%. I would say that it's very high at different levels. Right? Some people, it's pain's completely gone, or it's really helping them meet and reach their goals. For Steve, it's, can I get back to running? Right? For others, it's I want zero pain. So it's really dependent on what your goals are, and can we help you achieve those goals?
I think you get to a certain age, you don't strive for zero pain anymore. It's not possible.
Isn't that true? It's like we have become a culture of pain.
I think that's part of aging, though. I mean,
what
things
hurts
break
today?
Down. Yeah.
So the funny thing about pain is it's only 10% of the nervous system. However, everyone bases their health on pain. And you guys pay attention throughout the day and just notice how many times you say, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's all feeling. Hey, Steve, you're looking better. How you feeling?
Yeah.
That's 10%. So I like to look at the other 90%.
I was going to say, what's the other 90%?
Hey, Steve, how are you functioning? How's your sleep?
No idea.
That's convoluted.
Yeah.
How's your energy? How's your digestion? Right?
Yeah.
So the 90% is more important for me. There's a number of different ways to look at this.
He says, F your feelings. That's what Chae says.
I mean, in a sense, it's 10%.
That's the title of our...
I really don't care how you're feeling. I care how you're functioning.
That's a good...
I use...
feelings over function.
Heart disease is one that 47% of the time, the very first symptom of a heart attack is death. So I use the story. Most folks that have been in DRIP for a while remember Sheriff Alan Bridges.
Yes.
Had dinner. We were at a function that evening, and if you would have asked the sheriff, how are you feeling? He'd have said, I'm feeling fine. And he was cutting up and carrying on like he always did. And then he was no longer the next day.
Wow.
So he felt fine. However, he was not functioning properly.
Can I tell you that, I don't know if you know this story or not about my husband, Todd, but this was 12 years ago. He was at Del Sol, and he was getting his red belt or his brown belt at the time. We had been on vacation. He came in, and he's like, I'm going to go take my test. It was a Monday evening. Took his test, passed his test, sat on the bench, grabbed his neck, killed over with a heart attack right there.
Wow.
The Widowmaker, luckily for him, bless him, there was a doctor who was taking the same test with him and performed CPR until Hayes County, the ambulance came, and
he was healthy, too.
Very healthy, 47 years old, and it was all
not overweight,
not congenital, not high blood pressure, nothing. It was his cortisol levels. It was stress. He was he was 47 years old, and people, obviously he survived. He was on life support for 3 days and blah, blah, blah. But blah, 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 poor Don.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know what? It was very traumatic. It was very traumatic, very PTSD driven. I mean, every time I can't get a hold of Todd, I'm like, oh, that's it. He's had another one. But even himself, but knowing that now, how we try to approach stresses in our life, I'm very cognitive of that with him, because that's how his body handled stress, was that. And also I give a lot of credit to Dr. Paul Tucker too. He saved Todd's life. But that was a very interesting.
It's interesting because he felt great. And it goes back to your point, Chae, is that we focus on that little thing, like, how am I feeling today? And we're not paying attention to the overall. It reminds me, you were talking earlier about, so I think from a runner standpoint, that most runners think the more I do, the faster I run every day, the more miles I do, the faster I'm going to get. And it's true to a certain point, but at a certain point, you actually start getting slower. Like if I can run 30 or 35 miles a week and I get my max performance. If I start running 50 miles a week, I don't sleep as well. My body doesn't work as well. I'm tired all the time and my performance goes down. So it's this sort of like life's a balance, right? Sometimes you have to slow down to actually improve.
You know, what's been fascinating to me, and going back to stress just briefly, we often have this discussion of the stressors greater today versus 100 years ago. So there's different types of stressors, and we can talk about those. But in general, chiropractically speaking, stress is the number one cause of subluxation. Subluxation is when the bone's out of place, putting pressure on the nerve. That nerve goes to innervate your heart. Guess what? It's not innervated properly. Therefore, you are going to have problems. So what's really recently opened my eyes is we do some DNA testing in the office now. And part of that is not just nutritionally looking at what your body does like and does not like, but it's also looking at from a functional workout standpoint, what does your body like to do? And come to find out, I'm not a runner. I never have been. I hate it. My body doesn't like to run. It doesn't like the long burst of cardio, right? So some people are meant to be heavy lifters. Some are meant to be CrossFitters. So there's all of these different, but in people's mind, it's the more I do, the better shape I'm in. But reality is that's not true.
No, it's not. Yeah. Well, no matter how much I go to the gym, I'm never going to be a Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. It's not in my makeup. Your DNA test would tell me that.
My DNA says pretty princess. When you add it all, you like scramble it all up.
PPP. Yeah. So Chae, I mentioned earlier, so you have 3 businesses now? You also started a Central Texas lawn and landscape?
Yeah, that was fun.
Where'd you get the wild bug to do that?
So a friend of mine that I grew up with, went to school together, was in the landscape business and was in Oklahoma, had some changes go on in his life. And I said, you know what, why don't you move down here and let me open you a landscape business and, essentially give you a new start. And that's when I learned about the landscape industry.
You gave hand up, not a handout.
Oof. And man, was that a learning experience. Still to this day.
Any business is a learning experience and it's always more than you expect. We just started an Airbnb and I thought it was going to be easy and it's actually been 10 times harder than I ever expected.
What do you do to make yourself slow down, to be kind of in the moment? I find that the older that I'm getting, okay, for instance, Friday was my birthday. Went out, I'm at a club, we're dancing, two-stepping, I'm with a bunch of friends. And the thing that made me the most happy was looking at my daughter and my daughter-in-law, who last year they wanted to choke each other out. And this year they were sitting next to each other, loving on each other. That made me the most happy. Not like all the 30 friends that were there celebrating me and the drinking and everything else. But what forces you, your 3 children and your beautiful wife, what forces you to slow down and stop? And
so, again, funny you should ask today at Chamber, Trey Powers said, so where are you guys going for Christmas? You guys are always going somewhere cool and having fun and creating, adventures for your kids. And I said, that's why we do it, Trae, because he said, I'm more of a homebody. And when we don't have anything on the weekend, I'm out in the barn. And I said, Trae, that's it for me. When I'm at home, I don't slow down. I don't sit down. There's always something to do. So for us, it's travel. And when we can go away and unplug, I love the remote destinations to where I don't have Wi-Fi and I don't have service, and
Isn't
I can just turn my phone off, and I can hit the automatic response on email and leave a voicemail that I'm going to be out of the country and no service. So for me, it's remote destinations. And that may just be getting away at a friend's ranch or just unplugging for the weekend. And then I can truly relax. Monya's grandmother in San Angelo, she had a little farmhouse, and I enjoyed going out there because, she had a TV, but didn't have very many channels, and, wasn't really much for me to do. And she was like, you relax when we're here. And I said, I know there's no computer, there's no Wi-Fi, there's, so I'm just kind of forced to relax and read and just hang out.
That lifestyle that we are all absorbed in is only the last 20 years that's come about. Because in the 70s and 80s, you went away on vacation and you didn't call into the office, and we didn't have email. You weren't constantly in communication. You would actually get some downtime. It's pretty new, this perpetual work cycle we have.
Right.
Tell us about your the football. When you were a football player, you were in a Wendy's commercial, and I want to play this for you. So,
where's the beef? Some hamburger places give you a lot less beef on a lot of bun. Where's the beef?
There it is. So yeah, I was in a Wendy's commercial, and that was my one line right there. Where's the beef? I had on the pads, the helmet, and a couple cheerleaders dancing around.
Sorry. I'm going to try to, while you're talking, I'm going to try to look it up.
See if you can find it.
Is it on YouTube, you think?
There's no telling. I was probably, 9-10 years.
Oh my God.
Of age. We had a family friend that had a couple Wendy's that were franchised. And so he had this idea of a commercial and wanted me to be in the commercial. So that's where it started.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're going to find it.
No, I'll have to find it. I'll find it at some point, and then maybe I'll just put it on our reels on the social media.
So, Chae, what do you think's next for you? You're always sitting still.
A day where I can sit still. No, I think I'll always be doing something. I like to give. I like to help. I like to serve. So people say I have to go to work, and I tell people, wait a minute, why do you have to go to work? I said, I get to go to work. I get to help people. I get to make a difference. And for me, that's fun. So I think at some level, there's always some of that. I'm always looking at different things. I built my first spec house this year, and building another one now.
Really?
Having fun with real estate and getting into more commercial real estate.
Yeah, you're gutsier than me, boy. Building a spec house right now with the way the market is, that would be tough. But where's it at?
Blanco.
Oh, that's a good market. Yeah, that's a booming market.
Yeah, years ago we had a thought of that golf course out there.
Oh,
it'd be nice to have a place on the golf course. Hey, maybe someday Austin and San Antonio will start to grow together, and this will be a great location.
Yeah.
And ends up, little areas
what's
booming
happening
out there.
We were in Friday night this last week. We were in Blanco, heading down to Corpus Christi, and it was about 5:00 in the afternoon. I could not believe how much traffic was in downtown Blanco.
Really?
It was. We sat at there was a left turn with no light, and I sat there for 10 minutes.
I think you were probably there because was this past weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did the Christmas tree lighting and stuff like that at the courthouse. So that's probably you got caught into that.
Anyway.
But even I love that golf course. Rock and J Ranch, Valley Creek is the golf course, and even coming back on a Friday afternoon from playing golf, I'm amazed at the traffic coming into Blanco, coming from Austin, Dripping Springs.
Yeah, I would say we're within 10 years it will be nonstop from San Antonio into Austin. It's just going to be one great big metroplex.
I would imagine.
Well, I see you everywhere. Every event that I happen to be at within Dripping Springs, you're everywhere. So how does somebody else, if they're not seeing you out, how do they get a hold of you and your business and come see you?
Me personally, shoot me a text.
Just shoot you a text but your website?
websites. So you got gocurious.com,
Okay.
or we've got our previous website, which is Chiro.com.
Okay.
So that's a good way to connect with us. And then of course you got the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, what have you. Those are good ways to reach out to us.
Do you have somebody that does all that stuff for you?
Yes, actually.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
That's been, Michelle and I were talking about that I think until the last year or so, we've kept up pretty good with the world of Instagram and Facebook and Michelle TikTok. But it seems like in the last year, just things have escalated and sped up. And now I'm just a little behind on some of it.
We were having this conversation last night with Todd, and we were at that holiday party, and I said, Todd, his goal in life right now is to get a blue check mark on Twitter. And I said, you have no followers. Because that's not how it works.
You got to be more interesting.
Nobody knows who you are.
Can't you just pay $8 and get it that way?
That's what he thought. That's what he thought. I'll just pay $8. No, babe.
Yeah, I remember, I think maybe you were part of this conversation, Steve, years ago when we were in our first building there in the Arbor Center. And people were like, well, there's no visibility. You got to be on 290. You got to be on the road. And I said, you know what? The people driving by and hitting the brakes saying, hey, I need a chiropractor. That's typically not our patient base that we're looking for.
That's right.
But occasionally I can count on one hand how many times in 19 years someone has walked in and made an appointment.
Yeah.
I'm like, how'd you hear about us? So I just walked in. I'm
just
like,
driving by.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That's random.
No, you're a destination business for sure. People are going to seek you out by word of mouth. Well, I learned a lot from you that I didn't know about stem cell, regenerative cell therapy and chiropractic. So I'm glad you came in to visit with us.
Absolutely. It was fun.
Thanks for coming on the show, Chae.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening. If you have comments or feedback, please email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
New episodes every Tuesday, and leave us a review.